Good morning, Facebook. Am I a little late? What time is it? Ooh, I'm 2 minutes late. All right, sorry about that. Sorry about that, y'all. Okay. Good morning, good morning, good morning. I actually combed my hair today. I probably need a haircut, actually, but where are you going to get your hair cut these days? I think we may have to go home haircut. And that would be a good Facebook Live because my wife has never cut hair. And I think I might just get some clippers and just let her get after it. And my wife's watching right now. All right. Max, Grand Rising. Cool. Good morning, Max. My light working brother. Max, where do you hail from? Where are you watching from today? Tanya saying she's gonna cut my hair. Yesenia, good morning. Tribeswoman, hope you're taking care of yourself. Altadena, cool. Well, for some of you folks who may not know, my wife and daughter and I, we live in Venice Beach, California, and that's where Los Angeles hits the ocean, and it's one of the most popular tourist spots in California, and it is dead these days. So it's kind of nice, actually. That part is pretty wonderful. Leslie, good morning. Good morning, good morning. All right, let me grab my coffee. This is my bulletproof coffee. Just a quick recap. A couple days ago, I did a Facebook Live on my morning rituals. Alma. Good morning, friend. And so I did my meditation, did my mobility, drank my tonic, took the dog out, and then I'm still drinking my bulletproof coffee. And so this is that MCT oil and butter, collagen, good coffee. So this is really what I'm going to drink all morning. And so cheers. And this cup and my shirt, that's our men's group. And K4 stands for King of the Four Houses. And the four houses refer to the king, the warrior, the magician, the lover, which are central to not just male archetypes, but to human archetypes. And it's one of the things that we got from the wolves, number one, which is kind of going to be one of the topics today. But it's also one of the central pieces about adaptability. And adaptability is going to be absolutely core to the conversation of resiliency, particularly during these times. So we have a tendency in our current culture to look at things as sprints, like it's to get our needs met now, it's transactional, it's hustle, it's all those things. And the reality is that's not sustainable. So when you start looking at life as being a series of weeks, months, years, decades, and that's really the career or the arc of the journey that we're on. And really, even though this is going to be a temporary thing, humanity will reboot, and our environment will reboot, our economic system will reboot, restaurants will be open. Everybody who has gotten hammered by this in terms of your financials, that we're going to be back and better than ever, as long as we invest in that sustainability. And I'm not just talking about environmentally sustainable, but a sustainable lifestyle, because this is not a sprint, this is a marathon. So sustainability is central to that resiliency conversation, and adaptability, it turns out, is the gold standard of sustainability and resiliency. So adaptability is the theme today. Boy, we've covered some of the master maps. We did Yin Yang and the hero's journey yesterday that we'll touch base on. We talked about some of the key things of being resilient from a cultural standpoint. And really today is going to be about adaptability and how we can shore some of that up and become weaponized and anti-fragile. So adaptability is a central thing, and it's going to come down to 3 C's. So it's kind of nice to remember. So 3 C's are choice. Okay, that's the first one. And I encourage you guys to take some notes. You'll remember about 85% more of the things that you write down, because what I'm sharing with you is just verbal right now, and we have a tendency to flush our current thing we just learned in order to free up RAM, right? Brain RAM, prefrontal cortex or limbic system RAM, to deal with the upcoming thing. And we're designed for that really well. When we write things down, we take ideas, sounds, and we put them into symbols and kinetic function. It drives it much deeper into our long-term memory. So if this is information, if you hear a quote or you hear a piece of theory or a best practice, I encourage you to write it down. I carry a journal with me. I'll grab my journal, show it to you really quick. This is, and I jokingly refer to this as the man book. It's just a beautiful leather book from Will Leather here in Venice. And my wife got this for me. And then inside, I just put little, these replaceable insert books. And I go through one of these about every month. So I take a lot of notes. This is like my ancillary brain. It's my, it's the hard drive you plug into your computer so you don't have to store all your files on the laptop. So really important. I encourage you guys to take notes, journal, very, very important. Good morning, Sarah, Jackie, good morning. Okay, so the 3 C's are what I want to talk about in terms of adaptability. And adaptability is incredibly important because it turns out that the individuals, the species, the cultures, the organizations, the families, any type of entity that we want to talk about, they survive based on their adaptability. Evolution is not survival of the fittest. And that's the common thought about evolution, is if I'm just bigger, more in shape, better connected, if I can just, somehow manage to get abs or time or a degree, then I will have made it. And the reality is that's simply not true. It's not true from a financial standpoint. It's not true from an entrepreneurial standpoint. And it turns out that organizations that can pivot and become agile and iterate and fail forward, these are all things that are markers of very successful organizations. And the same is true for species, because it is not survival of the fittest, it's survival of the most adaptable. And that's really the Darwin quote about evolution that we hear so often, and it was twisted by one of his contemporaries. And so adaptability is central to every successful organization. And when we look at ourselves right now, we just got hit by a big variable, right? We're at home. Bonnie, good morning. Cord, good to see you, brother. Good morning. And I have my phone set up this way today, so I can't really see people's comments, but bear with me, and we're going to keep soldiering on about adaptability. So it turns out that adaptability is that big driver of sustainability and resiliency, and the most adaptable creature on the planet, and this is the apex predator on a global scale before us, was the wolf. I have a little wolf skull here because it's so rare to get visual aids. So this is a wolf skull, and this is not actually a contemporary wolf skull, although I wish I had one. This is a dire wolf skull. It's an extinct wolf, and these were the apex predators, and they continue actually up until the rise of agriculture with humanity about 12,000 years ago in the Indus Valley. So the wolf was the apex predator on every continent. It had the widest range of any mammal, and the wolf was incredibly successful because it was adaptable. And a lot of people go, well, because they were pack hunters and they had big teeth and they were fast, and it's like, yeah, those are all important tools, but so are lions, so are hyenas. There are a lot of other animals that had bigger teeth and had bigger packs, and they were not as successful as wolves. And so it turned out that wolves were able to hack a particular adaptability tool that humanity learned from them about 35,000 years ago. And that was the moment where we hit what's called our cognitive revolution. And we see the most of our history as humanity a flat line of technology, of very little culture as we think of it. And then at 35,000 years ago, we see this just gigantic spike, this hockey stick of advanced culture, music, art, symbolic representation, weapon use, hunting skills. Everything that we think of as humanity happened at 35,000 years ago. And that was when this started to become our dogs. So we're going to get to that in a minute. And I just wanted to tease y'all with the wolf lesson. And for those of you guys who know me, then you already know what the answer, what the secret of the wolves are that we learned. But we're going to get to that. All right. Hello, my beautiful Oregon friends. Catherine, good morning. I guess I can wave it when I hit this button. Waving. There we go. Okay. So we're going to start with C right off the bat. And the first C, we're going to have 3 C's. The first C is about choice. Okay, so being able to access choice. And this is inherently human. For the spiritual people, or of the Christian spiritual persuasion, this is free will. This is what God gave us. It's the ability to, number one, become self-aware. And the fancy word for that is metacognition, which means we're aware of being aware. We can think about thinking. So that's metacognition. And we're the only animal that we kind of know of, except maybe some of the, the other primates that are conscious of that. Maybe dolphins, who knows? Javier, good morning. And so that's the first piece of choice, is becoming aware, right? As self-aware. And then connected to, let me grab another visual aid really quick. This is a good one. This is my second skull. Okay, so this is prefrontal cortex. And this is the part that is our executive function, metacognition. And then connected to that, this is the 2 components of choice, is the sides of the brain. Okay? These are our temporal lobes, and temporal, it relates to time. So we're aware of time. We're aware of self, we're aware of time. Those are the components of choice, because when you put those 2 things together, we can now sacrifice what we want now for the sake of having something better in the future. And this is the probably central thing that humanity has that gave us the planet, is the ability to sacrifice eating all of our deer now so we can have more deer next week, right? And that's just the very core of every spiritual practice on the planet. Sacrifice. It's sacred, right? It's a part of that same word. And it's central to the ideas of if I'm going to choose to not have the things I want now for the sake of something in the future, then I'm killing off that thing that I want now. And that's the root of the word decide, right? Like homicide, suicide, insecticide. When I decide to do whatever, not eat all my deer now, then I've just killed off that pleasure or that satisfaction or that thing I want to have experienced now for the sake of something in the future. This is the crucifixion that leads to the resurrection. It's the intentional act of I can burn now so that my phoenix can be reborn in a very different way in the future. This allows us to be resilient. So choice is an incredibly important dynamic for adaptability and resiliency. And choice is one of those things that that's the free will. It's divinity. I mean, it's the closest thing to godliness as we can get. And there's a beautiful kind of a through line with most of our mythology about the idea of sacrifice. Even Prometheus, who brought fire from the gods and brought it down to the poor shivering humans. Really, the idea of fire is a manipulation of energy. It's heat and it's light, and that's that free will conversation of sacrifice. So, how do we access that kind of divine gift for choice? And one of my very favorite kind of quotes that allows me to navigate my days is choice, which is the first C, is a function of awareness. Like, we need to become aware. We need to be able to increase our consciousness. Choice and consciousness, really, really important. And so whatever the practices are of elevating your awareness, your consciousness, whatever mindfulness practices and appreciation and gratitude, these things are central to access that divinity within us. And so meditation is core. Really sits right at meditation is basically working out. It's a workout regimen for your consciousness, and it allows you to access that thing. And a couple days ago, during the morning ritual talk, I went over some meditation pieces. So really, really important. Okay. All right. And hold on. So the first C for our adaptability is choice and consciousness. And then the next one is control. So we need to have some measure of control or efficacy or power. Otherwise, we don't really have the ability to do much with our consciousness because there isn't any choices available to us. So obviously, the more power you have, the more choices are available to you. And so, along with choice, we have to access control. And control is, how do we explore, discover, create, master those maps that allow us to be able to have control of our decisions. And I've shared a number of them, yin yang yesterday, the hero's journey, the archetypes. There's a whole, any spiritual practice that, or spiritual system, is a map of allowing people to navigate through the uncertainty of our human existence. So really dig into those things. Read your Bible, read your Norse mythology, read whatever that thing is that allows you some access of control. Because without it, all the choice in the world, or awareness in the world, doesn't give you choice because they're not available to you. And I heard this from an economics professor. The only choices that matter are the ones available to you. So gain some power, gain some control, grow. And this is incredibly important. In addition to control, or a portion of control, is being able to understand, how do I navigate? What are the things that I really want? Where am I going? What is my North Star? What is it that I want to achieve with the time I have on this planet, the time I have in quarantine for the next couple weeks? What do I want to be able to accomplish? And being able to get very clear about that allows us to intentionally manifest it. Really, really important. So choice, elevate your consciousness, get really clear about the maps you're using. Get really clear about what you want to achieve. Get a laser on this. And my jiu-jitsu coach, Brett Keir, he says, when you're in chaos, then it's time to start killing. It's time to get focused. Now, when we go back and things resume normal, then we want to open our aperture and we want to be much more hunting or concentration focused. So this is the time where we want to get very lasered, and that's part of control as well. Okay. the last piece is choose. Yeah, really, really choose. So we have choice, elevate your consciousness. Then we have control, and then what is it that you want to do, particularly from the lens that you're viewing this experience. We create our experience based on our perspective, and the difference between looking at this experience as fearful is profoundly different than looking at this as exciting. And from the adventure facilitation world that I was in for 30 years, we had a joke that was like, what's the difference between fear and excitement? And everybody would try to say something smart, and they would go, just the expression on your face. But it's way deeper than that. Jeanette, that's my speaking agent and my mighty ally. Good morning, Jeanette, up in Washington. Walking, control, exercise. Amanda, good morning. So the last one is choose. Choose how you want this thing to be. Our amygdala, deep in the center of our brain, that's that smoke detector that only scans for threats and never sleeps. So it doesn't know the difference between excitement or fear. There's just a potential threat happening. I'm going to run out of toilet paper. I'm going to run out of money. I'm going to run out of relationships and friends. Like, this is an existential or real threat. There's no differentiation between this, which is one of the reasons why a lot of times anxiety about social things and why social media is so destructive for us, because our amygdala and our limbic system doesn't know the difference. Okay, but we do, and this is our higher functioning. We realize that we get to control our experience as we navigate through the next couple weeks here in our houses. So the downstream effect of that choice is profound, because when we take this as poverty, as an attack, as survival, we need to start playing defense. All of a sudden, we start pumping out a lot of stress hormones, a lot of things that allow us to survive, right? That's cortisol, adrenaline, norepinephrine, all of these things that are very, very, very successful for short-term survival. And it places us in an activated state, and ultimately that starts to kill us, because over the course of days and weeks, and for a lot of people years, that cortisol starts putting on weight for people, starts driving a whole slew of maladaptive diseases. So we start seeing high blood pressure, we start seeing heart disease, we start seeing diabetes. There's a whole bunch of stuff that's directly related to inflammation and cortisol. So that's what happens when we're in fear response. And so when we start looking at the same experience, the same stimuli, and going, this is an opportunity. Now all of a sudden, instead of releasing cortisol, instead of releasing all these stress hormones that are going to allow us to survive, we start now releasing serotonin and oxytocin and dopamine and all these things that radically change our experience. I mean, it changes our biochemical reality, it changes our optimism, it changes our physical state. And so choose intentionally. That's the last C, is we are divine in many ways. We get to really create our reality. So those are the 3 C's about adaptability. And it starts with consciousness and choice, and then has to do with control and owning a measure of power related to the power of knowledge, the power of perspective, the power of your priorities, and physical power. I mean, get in shape, stay in shape. Do the things you have to do. Dig in, read the books, do the writing. This is part of that journey. And yes, it's not easy. And then lastly, be very intentional. Really keep navigating off of your big North Star, not the reactive one that we are being pushed into with the fear mongering right now. Okay. All right. So last piece, and then we'll wrap it up. Is what did we learn from the wolves? Let me grab my wolf skull. We will juxtapose these bad boys together. It's kind of fun to see them. Okay, so what did we? This is a lame creature. No teeth. Very underwhelming. Very dismissible. Not a lot of skills. And we were very marginalized. There's a thing called the genetic bottleneck. And it happened during one of the last big ice ages where humanity almost went out. You can see our genetic diversity get down to, and then there's some people, like genetic experts that are saying we were down to potentially 1,000 humans on the planet. Like that's how tight we are together because we had a near extinction event during one of the last ice ages. This creature doing great, dominating, right? But we weren't doing very, very well. And now there's almost 8 billion of us on the planet. So obviously we won the game somehow. And we won it in the last 10,000 years, right? So what was that thing that we really took from the wolves? And it's this. The wolves do not operate off a one-dimensional hierarchy, whatever that is. Usually it's power. And most animals, if you're the biggest gorilla, you get all the food and you get all the females, and that's the way it wins. Same thing with elk, same thing with any other pack animal. If you are the biggest, the strongest, whatever that variable is, you win. And the wolves were able to evolutionarily add a second axis or hierarchical system on there, and that was connection. And so what you got with that is two axes of priorities that allowed, instead of there just being very hierarchically powerful creatures and then less successful ones, you saw specialization happen with wolves. And it turns out that there are innovative teaching leader wolves, and they're what they would call the alphas, which is kind of a no longer used terminology, but we'll call it that just because it's common parlance. So there are those wolves, and they're the ones that tend to lead. They're the ones that tend to delegate. They lead from the back. They're oftentimes female. And then the second role is there's what they would call a beta wolf, and they're the ones that are going to go in first on the elk, a big scary 1,200-pound forest horse with spears on its head. Those are the warrior wolves, and they're the ones that are bigger and stronger and more assertive and more aggressive and more ambitious. And then you have your specialist wolves, and there's lots of different specializations in wolf packs. There's scent hunters, there's sight hunters, there are different forms of trackers, there's problem solvers, and those are the what you would call the magician or the specialist wolves. And then lastly, there was a very unique role in a wolf pack that you don't see in many other animals, and they call it the nanny wolf. And the nanny wolves are the most empathetic, compassionate, caretaking animals that when the rest of the pack would go out and hunt, they would stay back and raise the young. And so the other wolves would bring back food, for those nanny wolves and the pups. That specialization not only allowed them to be very, very good at certain things and to be able to delegate leadership to the particular wolves that were able to, conduct leadership with whatever the thing they were really good at. But more importantly than specialization in any day-to-day moment was the ability to be able to adapt when the environment changed. So a wolf pack that had made its living hunting elk, they could pivot and hunt different animals. There's even wolves that fish. There's wolves that hunt in the Arctic. There's wolves that hunt in the desert. There's wolves that hunt every form of animal on the planet. And so when the environment would change or when the pack would migrate, then the different specialization roles within the pack would come to bear and the pack would survive. And so humanity has adopted that operating system. And so we call it the king, the warrior, the magician, the lover. This is Myers-Briggs. This is DISC. This is behavioral styles. This is the 4 houses of Hogwarts. These are the 4 character classes in all the video games that we all like to play. And these are the characters of mythological stories. So the big adaptability that we got from the wolves is to learn that within our tribe, there's things that we're really good at, and we can celebrate the heck out of that. So on an interpersonal level, partner well. Make connections with the people you need to connect with. So, when it's time to work out, call your warrior brothers and get it done. Knock it out. Get ferocious. When it's time for resiliency and connection and forgiveness, and find your lover people who are really good at that. They're compassionate, and connect with them when we need to, and we need to do that now. For those of us who are pivoting to more of a digital platform and we're exploring how to do some of the remote programs that are going to be so important to us, writing books, find the magician brothers and sisters in your tribe, connect with them, allow them to mentor, coach, and support you, right? You have to reach out to them because they're not reaching out to you, right? They're a little bit more reclusive. And then lastly, when we need inspiration, motivation, lean into your king people, connect with them. They've got the energy, they're the battery of the bus. So that's on an interpersonal level. On an intrapersonal level, I put my skulls down for a minute. This is the adaptability piece, and we'll close with this. We need to be able to access that archetype or that wolf behavior that suits our day. And this is on an hour-by-hour basis. There's times that we need to, when we start structuring our day, when we start scheduling our day, there's time to work out. So get very, very rigid and militant with yourself. It's time to do your exercise. And right now I'm committed. I'm doing 100 push-ups every day, 100 sit-ups, 100 squats. So if anybody wants to join me, you can do that. But I put my warrior hat on and I get after it. But there's also time to do your magician work, which is do the research, learn the skills and the mastery you need to know. Okay, reach out to your people. This is that king and lover archetype. It's connection, it's relationships. So we need to get very intentional about those things because it'll allow us to be able to be adaptable. It's the gift of the wolves that we got from them. And so the 3 C's, again, meditate every day. I like to meditate before the world has its way with me. This allows me to activate my consciousness, and I get to choose. I'm the chooser of my day. I'm the chooser of the quality of my life, of the way that I respond to this challenging situation. I don't want to be reactive. Next, I'm going to gather my control. So I'm going to access my archetypes. I'm going to access my maps. I'm going to stay healthy and strong. And then lastly, I'm going to be the chooser. I'm going to choose what my reality is and access that divinity. And I want to challenge and encourage everybody to join me on this journey. Please reach out to your people, pick up the phone, and take care of yourselves as well on this. So everybody thank you for joining me today. It feels really good. I appreciate, this is probably more for me than it is for you guys watching. And Corb, have a great day. Suzanne, have a great day. Be productive. And the time of the lone wolf is over. So don't isolate, people. All right, y'all.